Hi, how you doing? In this video we're going to break down another fight. This time it's from the series The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, which was televised in the 80s, starring Jeremy Brett. The episode in question is called The Solitary Cyclist, and in this episode Sherlock Holmes has a fight in a bar with an unsavoury character. Before we get going, I'll give you a little bit of background about what we're going to see and what we can expect based on the story. It's set in at the very turn of the 19th, 20th century. It was actually published, one of the short stories, as part of the collection The Return of Sherlock Holmes in 1905. So it was written slightly before that. And at that point the Marquis of Queensberry's rules were in force. The last defence of the London Prize Ring Championship had been some 7 or 8 years earlier, so at this point we're looking very much at a gloved style of boxing. However, that being said, Sherlock Holmes was supposedly skilled in the art of bartitsu. Actually, Conan Doyle used the word baritsu, but the assumption is that he was referring to bartitsu, which was an almost mixed martial art created by Edward Barton Wright, which combined Japanese jiu-jitsu with English wrestling and pugilism, French stick fighting, and le boxe français, so the kicking from the French early savate, was combined together as bartitsu. And the pugilistic system that we can expect, assuming that of course he follows what's accurate, is very much that of the transitional style. So those people who were fighting across this period where we moved from the London Prize Ring through to the Queensberry Cup. And there's a really good example of that style that I'm going to talk about here in Ned Donnelly's Self-Defense or the Art of Boxing. So what I'm hoping is that we'll see this, because this is the exact typical style that was being used when this scene was set. So enough of me, let's get in there and look at the first section of the fight and see what we can draw from that.
Mr. Woodley.
None of your damn business.
Our landlord keeps a very respectable house, and your language is not welcome.
Who do you think you are? What the hell do you want coming here asking all them questions?
You're quite right, landlord. Clearly not a gentleman.
Oh, I'm as much a gentleman as you are.
Well, Mr. Woodley, I beg to differ. We've got a lovely scene set. Sherlock Holmes is at the bar talking to the landlord. A gentleman is to his right, and is proving to be somewhat impolite. The two of them are exchanging a bit of information. Sherlock Holmes is clearly trying to find information about his current quest, his current mystery, and Mr. Woodley is somehow involved in that. Doesn't really matter. What matters is that Mr. Woodley is clearly brusque and impolite, and from the backhanded blow he strikes to Sherlock Holmes at the bar, he's clearly no gentleman. So we've got this set up quite nicely now. Sherlock Holmes has been knocked to the side. Let's see how this progresses.
Everybody here will bear witness to the fact that I am acting in self-defense.
So Sherlock takes his jacket off, hangs it up, and announces to the entire room that he's acting in self-defense. Clearly, he's confident, he's cool, he's calm, he's collected. He's going to go over and he's going to resolve this situation in the way that he knows best. He walks over, he taps him on the shoulder. We've got the fight is about to start. It's been set up beautifully. We've got the cool, calm, collected gentleman, and we've got the angry, abusive ruffian. Between the two of them, we should be up for a really good fight. Holmes assumes his guard. It's a little bit stylised. It's a little higher than Donnelly demonstrates. Donnelly's is held relatively low. Palms facing up, one hand covering the mark, the other hand extended out. Holmes's is a little bit higher. Donnelly, again, doesn't have this circling movement that Holmes is using, but I can live with that. It's supposed to be showy. There's got to be a degree of playing to the camera going on here. The camera looks down at Holmes's feet, and he's got a very linear stance with his back foot almost pointing out a little bit too far, by my feeling, but that's exactly the stance as described in Donnelly. And he does a couple of little dancing steps, the crowd go, ooh! It shows that he's a skilled fighter. Pretty much every writer on boxing stresses how important footwork is, and when you get the footwork right, you're effectively in control of the fight. And that's exactly what Holmes is demonstrating here. I take issue a little bit with his showing off his footwork, considering he's wearing leather-soled shoes on sawdust on a solid floor. He's likely to fall over if he's a bit too cocky. But we've shown now that not only is he cool and calm and collected and a gentleman, but he's also very scientific in his approach to boxing.
No, sir. A gentleman. Only a ruffian deals the blow with the back of the hand. A gentleman uses the straight left. And I said I'm a gentleman.
The fight's actually started now. Holmes is in his element. He's standing in his guard, he's keeping his fists moving, and he throws the first punch. He throws a straight left. He throws it with his palm upwards, which isn't something we see in the earlier sources, but in the transitional era, that's pretty much exactly what we see. Ned Donnelly kindly gives us a little diagram of different hand positions. I'll try and show it to you here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but the top one, with the hand held upwards like this, is the position that we should be using for the left lead hand at head. And that's exactly what Holmes has done. He's thrown that out, and he's thrown a few more. He's even stopped to explain, during repeatedly throwing this left lead off at his opponent's face, that that's how a gentleman fights. And then he proceeds to do it again. So at this point, I'm loving that. It's nice and authentic. It's straight out of Donnelly. His stance is good, his striking is good, his body position's good, his hand position's good, everything's great. I don't really like the mobile guard, but I can forgive them that. Let's see what happens next. Mr. Woodley's clearly angry now. He sweeps everything off the bar and he spins round. To be honest, I kind of expected him to pick up a bottle or something to use as a weapon, but clearly he's not that far off being a gentleman. He turns round and he steps in and he throws a couple of big round punches. Sherlock Holmes, as you would expect for a man of science, simply ducks and weaves underneath these punches. A few miss him, and then he steps in with a low right to the body. Again, this is straight out of the manuals. This is in Donnelly, it's in Allinson Wynne, it's in pretty much everything of this period, and before and after. This slip underneath a punch with a short contracted arm strike to the body, absolutely perfect. And as he steps away, Mr. Woodley stands up and he catches another punch to the side of the head. This one's a round blow, but again, I can forgive him that. We're looking at the later pugilistic period, or even the earlier gloved period, and round blows were a lot more common then, so I'll forgive him that. This last one, it's a little bit more disappointing. Just the kind of block and hold and throw. It feels to me a little bit staged, considering how nice the striking's been up to press. The fact that Mr. Woodley's now moving so slowly, and this could be realistic, you know, he's taken a couple of fairly solid punches, but the fact that he throws a punch, Sherlock Holmes catches it, blocks it with his arm out, and then nothing happens for a second while Sherlock throws that other... It's a little disappointing. But, do you know what? You know, so far, this has been pretty awesome. So I'm willing to forgive them that. Let's see if that's the end of the fight or not. Clearly the end. Sherlock Holmes sees his man isn't going to get back up, walks across, puts his jacket back on. The crowd in the pub all applaud, just as you would expect. Sherlock Holmes gives them a little nod and walks away. Clearly he's very happy with what he's done. He's not suffered any harm other than the original blow. That was the only one to land. And he's showed his character and his science. I really quite like this. It's a short fight. And to be honest, you know, I'd quite like it to be a little bit longer, but the problem with longer fights is that they're not really as authentic, they're not as realistic. There are some things about this that aren't realistic, but it captures that feel beautifully well. I think Jeremy Brett plays the part incredibly well, and he pulls off that arrogant air that you expect Holmes to have incredibly well. It's a little bit stylised for me. But that's really the only fault I can find with this. I love it. Let me know what you think. I'll be very interested to hear. If you're interested in finding out more about Donnelly's system, the entire book of Donnelly's is scanned in high resolution images over at pugilism.org. You can get it over there. It's a very interesting book. It marks that transition, that period of moving from the London prize ring through to the Marquis of Queensberry's rules, and Donnelly kind of captures that era better than anyone else. And to be honest, this fight captures it better than any other that I've seen, which is a surprise considering this is made in the 80s, and the 80s was kind of famed for being a bit tacky and getting these things wrong and just making them showy. In this instance, that's exactly the opposite of what they've done. It's a great fight. I thoroughly recommend you go and watch the whole thing.